Mother's love exemplified through a few people we may know or remember from the Bible. Before we get there, I want you to think back to as you're growing up, and most of us here have grown up in the church to some degree, or new people grew up in church, or grew up in a family that went to church and things like that. We can remember and think back to ladies that kind of helped us, guided us, directed us in the right pathway when it came to roughly church. I can recall a couple examples from when I was younger. One of which I remember I was either, I think, a freshman in high school, maybe 8th grade, and the church where I was going had a balcony. So us kids had a big goal of let's go up to the balcony, we're going to be amongst ourselves, occasionally talk and chit-chat and carry on during service sometimes. That's who we were, that's what we did. And I recall, I never was one to carry on too much, I was more intent on the sermon and stuff like that. But I recall one time where I wasn't so intent on the sermon, and I was up there with one of my friends, and we were up there a little bit during service, messing around, just talking around. And after service, a couple of the, we'll say, more mature ladies of the congregation went right up to me and took me aside. And read me the riot act, so to speak. In a nice, kind manner, though, too. I knew the ladies for years. They looked at me and said, "You know better." And I did. And I was that was one time off, a little thing like that. And I remember those ladies' faces to this day. I won't mention their names. You guys wouldn't know them. Mom would, but the rest of you guys wouldn't know them from back in those days. But there were many ladies like that in the church who helped my upbringing. I can also call one time. It was right after I first started teaching Sunday school lessons. There was one Sunday morning where I wore shorts to teach Sunday school. And, people my age think nothing of this, and people your age, children, guys and gals like that, you probably don't think of this too, wearing shorts to do something like it. But for that culture, wearing shorts to teach, big faux pas. I did not know. I was rebuked, I was corrected, and I changed. I did that once. Only one Sunday morning ever, I wore shorts to teach it. Only once. But they made me understand and realize a little bit the importance of having reverence for what you're doing. And in fact, to the point that but there was that one Sunday I didn't wear a tie. No, I think I even wore a little bit of something for that shirt Sunday we did last year. I think I wore a little bit of something up here still. But I have to wear a suit. Because I think I got to hold this position in respect and give it the honor it deserves. So, a mother's love is applied in many ways. It's in kindness, it's in support, it's in encouragement, it's also in correcting and rebuking and training up. We're going to start this morning with Hagar. Genesis chapter 21, verses 14 through 16. So Hagar, interesting choice to start with, but you'll see why we'll start with her as we go throughout this message. Genesis chapter 21, verses 14 through 16. Of course, Hagar had a child with who? Abraham. Way back when. This is Sarah, right? This is Hagar. Okay, so early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes, went off, and sat down nearby, about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. And as she sat there nearby, she began to sob. Again, why's it going to be sad, right? You mentioned that, Dave, with your song. Some of these words are sad sometimes. But we see Hagar, she cried out to God and sought help for her son. Why? Because her love for her son was so much, so big, so grand, that she was sorrowful to God about what was coming, what was happening. But of course, God did provide, and the story gets better from there for Ishmael and things like that. So there's Hagar. We see the love of Hagar, the sorrow Hagar had, and the care. The mother of Moses, Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Where it says, Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, coated it with tar and pitch, placed the child in it, put it among the reeds, among the bank of the Nile. Why? Because people of that ancestry were not being treated too nicely at this point in time in the land of Egypt. So she sought a way in which that she could preserve his life, to keep him alive. Why? Because she loved him. So she hid Moses to keep him safe, keep him secure, hide from the officials at the time of the land. Moving on, we see Hannah. Hannah in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 20 through 28. And Hannah is a very renowned person from Scripture also, but also one a little bit overshadowed. But again, very, very important. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived, gave birth to a son, named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." When the man Elkanah went up with all his family to offer an annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, "After the boy is weaned, I will take him, present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. Do what seems best to you." Elkanah, her husband, told her, "Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word." So the woman stayed at him and nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with the 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli. And she said to him, "As surely as you live, my Lord, I'm the woman who stood here beside you, praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I will give him to the Lord. For his whole life he'll be given over to the Lord." And she worshipped the Lord there. Hannah is a special person from history, as was her son Samuel, because she was there before God praying diligently. Wanted a son, was barren, but wanted a son. And she prayed to God, saying, "If you bless me with the son, I will give him you. He'll be yours. He'll be a servant of your kingdom and amongst your people for all his life." That's what she prayed for. And once the child was born, she went diligently to the house of the Lord to pray, to offer sacrifice. And she's there with the priest at the time saying, "Hey, you were here. I was here with you, praying for this child. And look, here he is." So she prayed fervently to God, received what she'd asked, and dedicated him to God, as was her intention and her prayer. And of course, Mary. Luke chapter 1, verse 26, starting point. In the 6th month, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name, of course, was Mary. Angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will be with child and give birth to a son. Give him the name Jesus. He'll be great and be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. He'll reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end." She responded by saying, "I'm the Lord's servant. May it be to me as you have said." Then the angel left her. So Mary, of course, especially, she's given the most atypical of news and responds with faith and submission. Faith and submission. Recognize that, yes, I believe it. Yes, I submit to it. May it be as it has been told to me. Power, strength, and might. So here we see 4 examples. But we see Hagar, who's a person who's full of love, but also full of sorrow, and approaching unto God, a godly woman. The mother of Moses. Again, a mother responding out of love and trying to preserve and have perseverance for her newborn son, to preserve his life out of love and out of faithfulness unto God. Here we see Hannah, a woman who was barren for many years, who's been praying diligently for her son, and once finally getting what she had desired, she went right to the temple, right to the priest, to offer sacrifice and prayer and praise out of response of her love and faithfulness. Here we see Mary, again, acting in response of her faith and submission and commitment and meekness unto God to hear such a news and respond with submission and faith without question. So what's the response to this going to be? Proverbs chapter 23, verses 23 through 25. Buy the truth and do not sell it. Get wisdom, discipline, and understanding. The father of a righteous man has great joy. He who has a wise son delights in him. May your father and mother be glad. May she who gave you birth rejoice. Rejoice. I ponder when we were young and when we were in school, and we who are in school even now, do we spend time thinking how our actions and deeds reflect upon our mothers? Do we put so much thought and consideration in that? Do we ask ourselves, am I making her proud and making her rejoice, or making her sorrowful and sad and perhaps even mad by the actions and decisions that I am making and choosing to go through? Recognize this verse says, the fatherless man has great joy. He who has a wise son delights in him. May your father and mother be glad. May she who gave you birth rejoice. These sort of things happen, of course, when we are those who, by truth, focus on that which is real, have faith in it, approach wisdom, discipline, and understanding as something truly worthwhile, and focus thereupon. Then we can be the people that would make our mothers highly esteemed, and indeed, probably give a little smile onto their faces, as we recognize they are those who have had love, encouragement for us, and have done their best to keep us on the right path. Occasionally with a loving smile, other times with a sword to cut out the evil from within us, to push us in the right pathway, whatever was necessary at different points in time. Help us to appreciate that as we go throughout this Mother's Day. As this message was a little bit shorter this week, I want to make sure we get enough in there, and a little bit late, but we got it in there, and that aspect is still important. Be mindful of those things. So Mother's Day is a day in which we set aside as important and as blessed our mothers, the ladies of the church who have uplifted us, encouraged us, taught us, instructed us, and in case when necessary, even rebuked and corrected us. Be mindful of the importance of such, for it helps make us who we are today. Be mindful of that this day and always, as we come together this Lord's Day also to express our thanksgiving to God for them in our lives. And also, as a funny side note, I think we should thank ourselves, because we weren't born, and wouldn't be mothers in the first place, right? Just saying. Okay, so let's rise for our invitation hymn this morning.